Welcome back to the 5 best and 5 worst series. This time around we're focusing on the Galaxy S10. Nowadays it's getting extremely tough for top of the line flagships to have any major cons, yet we'll never reach the point of the perfect phone since smartphone technology is continually changing and improving. So although the S10 is considered by most to be the best smartphone you can buy yet, there's still a few shortfalls you should know about, even if some of them are nitpicks. By the way, I wanted to focus on the best model Samsung has to offer, so most of these results are based off the Galaxy S10 Plus, but most of the things on this list will apply to the regular S10 model as well. For the sections that don't, I'll be sure to let you know. As always, I like to start it off on a positive note. So the first best feature about the S10 Plus is the battery life. You can't go wrong with a massive 4100 mAh battery capacity, you're bound to get amazing screen on times, and the S10 Plus is no exception. Even with that gigantic Quad HD display, I was getting SOTs of around 5 to 6 hours. I know in 2019 those numbers by themselves may not seem that impressive, but I'm a really heavy user. To put it in perspective, I constantly use around 5 to 6 gigabytes of RAM, so I never close any of my background apps. I also have Wi-Fi or mobile data always on, plus Bluetooth location and the always on display enabled at all times, along with the screen brightness set to near max. With all that in mind and considering how powerful the hardware is and how many pixels this display drives, the battery accommodates this device really well. Last year the Galaxy S9 Plus only had 3500 mAh of battery, so I was seeing an average SOT of around 3 to 4 hours. This bump in battery capacity has really made a difference, and the inclusion of night mode, Samsung system-wide dark theming, has also helped. Hopefully more smartphone OEMs can jump on this trend of including a 4000 mAh battery, because God knows we need it with these new, more powerful processors. Just a heads up, while I'm pleased with the battery life on the S10 Plus, the smaller Galaxy S10 may not get the same results since it has a smaller battery capacity. If you happen to follow Samsung's new releases every year, this next best feature shouldn't be a shocker. The screen is the best on the market. The regular S10 has a 6.2 inch display while the bigger brother has a 6.4 inch display. For us geeks, it's Quad HD, OLED has a better screen to body ratio than the Note 9 and S9 Plus, comes with HDR10 Plus, and now has Gorilla Glass 6. How's that for cutting edge technology? Besides the hole punch camera cutout, it's incredibly close to being a bezel-less display. I'm completely in love with consuming content on this huge screen since the colors are so natural and not as saturated when compared to some of its predecessors. It can also get extremely bright or dim without totally crushing the blacks, and viewing angles are incredible. The only controversial thing about the display is the hole punch design for the front-facing cameras. Most people seem to prefer this over a notch and have even embraced it with custom S10 wallpapers, though some others are still staggered as to why Samsung didn't just go for an entirely bezel-less display like some other Chinese competitors. Personally, I think it's a step forward just before being able to go fully bezel-less, so I don't mind it at all. In day-to-day use, it doesn't get in the way of my notifications or apps, but I do feel like this is a temporary feature before Samsung figures out the best way to go bezel-less for the S11 or even the Note 10. Samsung also jumped on the bandwagon of including more than just 2 cameras on the back and 1 on the front. It now has 3 rear sensors and 2 selfie shooters if you get the S10 Plus. Around the back, there's a standard wide-angle camera for your regular shots, an ultra-wide lens for landscape or scenery, and the familiar telephoto lens for close-ups. All 3 of these cameras perform amazingly with good lighting, colors are vibrant and vivid, details are sharp and clear, and saturation is well balanced. It does have a tendency to make certain shots look brighter than they actually are by overexposing a bit, and contrast does look boosted in the post-processing, but at this point I'm just nitpicking. The real concerns come with low light shooting, but I'll get into that later on in this video. Speaking of video, this thing is a beast. You can shoot in up to 4K at 60 FPS with the main camera or 4K at 30 FPS with the ultra wide or telephoto. Plus the audio it records is very clear and sounds great. I'm also a fan of the lens. Even though it does produce edge distortion, it really comes in handy when I'm out and about and trying to capture a building, an entire room, a city, or even a large landscape. With most of the phone cameras, I'd have to resort to panorama mode to do that. And the telephoto lens, it's alright. It does come in handy while I'm in class and want to take a picture of the board while I'm sitting far away, but the results aren't astonishing. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. However, I was very pleased with the front-facing camera. The sharpness, detail, and quality of images have been vastly improved. There's also a button in the viewfinder to get a wider shot if you're shooting for a group selfie, but don't get it twisted. The S10 Plus's second front camera just crops in and out from the same image, and it's just there for helping with depth information and enhancing live focus. Personally, I'd still choose the Google Pixel 3's camera over this one. Not only is the HDR Plus processing a bit better, but it also has some extra goodies that are hard to ignore, including night sight, playground mode, motion autofocus, and unlimited Google Photos cloud storage. The 4th best feature is the software, which Samsung calls One UI, and it's running Android 9.0. First off, props to Samsung for thinking outside the box and making the entire interface easy to use with just one hand. When holding this massive device, my thumb can barely reach 2/3 of the screen, but on One UI that's not a problem since most of their stock apps and menus have been dropped down towards the bottom. On top of that, this is one of the first few Android skins to support system-wide dark theming with a true black background to take full advantage of that power-efficient AMOLED display, so thanks to night mode I'm saving a lot more battery. I also enjoyed that they followed the recent trend of including a gesture-style navigation system, and the one they provided is truly amazing. Samsung calls it full screen gestures, and all they did was replace the regular back, home, and recents buttons with 3 bars that you can swipe up on. They all do the same actions as before, just in much less space. Plus, there are other more subtle software tweaks that I really enjoyed, including native support for Google's digital well-being, the option to remap the Bixby button, and with a few tricks allowing it to launch Google Assistant. If you want to find out how to do that, click the eye in the right corner. Dual Messenger is great for making copies of a single app sandbox for different accounts. Bixby Routines is a very useful feature that lets you customize your phone's behavior based on where you are, what time it is, how much battery you have, and more. And if you download a Samsung app called Good Luck 2019 in the Galaxy Store, you can customize the crap out of the system UI. Samsung really nailed the software this year, and I would even crown it as the most feature-packed. To top it all off, that performance is incredible. That 7nm Snapdragon 855 chipset really does wonders even on an aggressive animation-heavy interface like Samsung's One UI. Navigating throughout this interface is fast, both application loading and resume time is snappy, and animations and transitions are buttery smooth. And if you like to game, the S10 is the way to go. It's packed with the Adreno 640 GPU, the most powerful graphics chipset Qualcomm has to offer. I'd say it's very comparable, if not faster, to the OnePlus 6T, which is considered by most to be the best performing Android phone on the market. So in other words, nothing about this phone is slow. I've never experienced a hiccup or any sort of lag, but that's not to say that that can change in the long run. We'll have to wait and see. For now though, it's showing a lot of promise. Before I move on to the 5 worst features about the Galaxy S10, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Dbrand for sponsoring this video. Dbrand skins are a great way to customize your phone to make it a bit more personal. They have a wide selection to choose from with tons of devices that are supported. They also give your phone a bit more grip, especially if you have a glass back such as the Galaxy S10. I've been using these skins for years now and I've never had a problem with them, and I'll drop a link down below if you're interested. Let's switch it over to 5 of the worst features about the Galaxy S10. Just a heads up, some of these complaints could be seen as nitpicks. They are undesirable features, but nothing that ruins the phone in my opinion. Let's start it off with the in-display fingerprint sensor. Now don't get me wrong, the scanner on this device recognizes my finger well, but the performance just isn't there yet. I'd say the unlocking speed is just as fast as the fingerprint sensor found on the first generation Google Pixel or Galaxy S7, and those are 2-year-old devices. I'm sure some of you in the comments are going to say that it's not that bad, and it's not, but there's definitely room for improvement. With the technology being relatively new, I wouldn't even blame Samsung for it being so slow. They are pushing in the right direction because I do think in-display fingerprint sensors are the future, and I do love that I can unlock the phone even when the screen is turned off, unlike the OnePlus 6T, but this needs to get faster in the next release considering how expensive these flagships are. With the S10 being a month old, there's been a good amount of people saying that their signal strength hasn't been all that great. Those affected are mostly customers of T-Mobile, AT&T, and Sprint, but it also seems to be a combination of the frequency you're connected to, the location, and going caseless. Personally, I haven't experienced this issue to quite the extreme that some users are reporting, but in my own testing while going caseless, merely holding the phone in a certain way will make the signal strength drop significantly. That's something I haven't experienced on any recent Android device, let alone a Samsung. Sprint has even come forward and tried to fix this issue with a software update, but that still leaves users who are on T-Mobile and AT&T's network who are experiencing this problem. Moving on, low light performance for any of the cameras on the S10 is not that great. Sure, the shots you'll get at night aren't terrible, but it does feel like a step down for some of the top competitors like the Pixel 3, iPhone XS, or even the Mate 20 Pro. For starters, for whatever reason, the camera really tries to overexpose most of my shots at night, highlights get blown out easily, details are grainy, exposures are sometimes too long, and sometimes photos get oversmoothed to the point where some of the objects in the picture look like a painting. These results are much more common when using the wide angle or telephoto lens. Samsung did release a scene optimizer, which is supposed to help with low light shots, but you can't enable it manually and it only turns on when it's really dark. We're talking almost pitch black. But even then, it doesn't even come close to what Google's night sight mode is capable of. The next worst thing about the S10 is likely to be something that Samsung has been struggling with for years, and that is consistent software updates. It took Samsung 7 months to finally officially update the Galaxy S9 to Android Pie, 2 months before the first Android Q got released. That's gotta be annoying. Sure, they went above and beyond with One UI, but it's still something to consider if you get an S10. You're most likely not going to get Android Q until every other OEM already has it. Lastly, I wanted to talk about the price since it's probably the biggest reason why most people won't be choosing to get this device early on. The starting price for the regular Galaxy S10 is $900, while the Galaxy S10 Plus is $1,000. Yikes. The price tag is much more justifiable for someone who has a 2-year-old smartphone and wants something juicy to stick their teeth into, but it's not going to be attractive if you're rocking a Galaxy S9, Mate 20 Pro, OnePlus 6T, or any other top tier flagship from 2018, since most of those phones were already pretty expensive, well, except the OnePlus 6T. Samsung may be pushing its pricing for fair reasons, but it is getting extremely tough to recommend frequent updates since most phones from the last couple of years have already been so great. The difference in performance, software quality, or update frequency, and trending features such as bezel-less displays, amazing cameras, and solid battery life are not going to entice you into a yearly update schedule unless new phones provide something truly breathtaking, and I'm not sure Samsung's latest does that. If the S10 would have gone completely bezel-less and not driven up the price so much when compared to the S9 Plus, I think that would have been a different story. Either way, that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments which features you enjoy or hate in the Galaxy S10. Make sure to give this video a huge thumbs up if you enjoyed. Don't forget to take a look at those D-brand skins. Get subscribed for even more awesome Android content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.